I think we can transition here into our first topic, and that is Pakistan, where there has been quite the electoral move recently there. Of course, candidates affiliated with former Prime Minister Imran Khan did by far the best of any other candidate, but there's a lot happening surrounding all of this, and we are very, very honored to be here, joined here once again by Junaid Ahmad, who's a professor of religion, law, global politics, and also the director of the Center for the Study of Islam and Decoloniality in Islamabad, Pakistan. Junaid, thanks so much for being back with us.
Eugene, Rania, it's always a pleasure, although I'm not sure what serious analysis I can give after those very cool animations. I'll try my best.
See,
thank you. I appreciate that.
I love how humble you are.
Excellent. Well, we will all do our best here. Rania set us off in a great way. But, you know, Junaid, this is, I mean, obviously was huge news, an electoral earthquake, really, in Pakistan. Maybe for those who haven't been following, you know, give us some context for why it is such a big deal that, you know, candidates affiliated with the former prime minister were able to gain the most votes in this most recent election.
Well, there's plenty of context, but I'm going to try to give what the immediate context was with this victory of former Prime Minister Imran Khan's political party, even though, and viewers will get a sense of what's going on, his political party was banned from participating in these elections. And therefore, whatever was left of the party, because it confronted deep repression by the state since the ouster of Imran Khan from power in April 2022, which was the work of both the United States, the military establishment in Pakistan, as well as the usual kleptocratic politicians. So I think that no one was expecting, myself included, probably not even former Prime Minister Imran Khan, who's languishing in a horrible jail cell right now, but no one was expecting, because of this enormous repression, totalitarian forms of suppression of all dissent, and especially targeted to this party, because they're the only party that represents somewhat of a threat to the powers that be, both domestic and foreign. But lo and behold, still, again, the party, which were all of them were running as independents, they weren't allowed to run from the party known as PTI, Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, the Movement for Justice, and they secured the most seats in parliament. So all of us were surprised at this miraculous development, considering the way they have been brutally targeted, tortured, forced to renounce politics by blackmailing all of them, which took away more than half of the leadership of the party. So that context is actually one which makes these developments so unbelievable.
You know, this also comes, you mentioned, after all of this interference in Pakistani politics by the military establishment and, of course, the United States, which we know now actually did, in fact, interfere in Pakistan. You have Imran Khan, who's in detention. And obviously, you would imagine that would impact the elections. It's interesting to me that people are still supportive of his party, despite the repression, despite the fact that he's been placed in detention. Can you update us on what's happening with Imran Khan in detention? Is he going to be staying in detention? Is there an effort to get him out? And how is that impacting the ability of people to be active? I mean, would there have been even more support for his party had it not been for all this repression?
Yeah, so perhaps a little more context may be useful here. So former Prime Minister Imran Khan was ousted in a so-called vote of no confidence in Parliament. Now we know that what he was saying at that time, quite publicly, which most people, I mean, maybe his party members, but in terms of the military establishment, Washington, and of course our politicians, but also significant chunks of our intellectual class, really considered him a conspiratorial nutcase at that time. And it was only after a year, more than a year after that, when the online publication, The Intercept, published the contents of this very famous, what's called a cipher, or an official diplomatic cable that was sent from the Pakistan ambassador to the United States, to the Pakistan Foreign Ministry, in which he is lectured about Khan's aggressive neutrality. It's an oxymoron in the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. Now, the unfortunate luck of Khan was that he arrived in Moscow the day that they launched the special military operation. And so he was compelled by forces left, right, and center to immediately condemn and denounce Putin while he's shaking his hand, which is ridiculous. Khan was there to obtain cheap gas, cheap wheat as well. But that to the United States seemed like, a problem and what they called aggressive neutrality. And so in that cipher, they basically are saying that, look, we really have a problem with your prime minister. I mean, very openly saying this. And if you remove him, all will be forgiven. So I don't think it can get clearer than that. And so at that time when Khan was like waving, I don't think he had the exact document because they kind of tried to hide it. But this is what he was saying, that yes, this is a conspiracy or just like a typical regime change operation with these forces. Like I said, most people didn't believe it. The Washington and the military establishment believed that this would eradicate the Khan virus, as I call it, Khan for politics. It did not. They resorted to a whole bunch of new plans to put a whole bunch of charges against him. That didn't work. Assassination attempts. That didn't work. And then finally, when the Intercept leaks this cipher diplomatic cable, then the United States, first of all, the State Department in the U.S. says that, look, even though we've been denying it, maybe it did exist, maybe we did put this pressure, but this is normal interaction between two governments, which is, of course, it's not. And the Pakistani military establishment also denying this, then in a bizarre way, they then accused Khan for committing treason. You leaked a top secret diplomatic cable that threatens our national security, which is absolutely, obviously bogus. It threatens, it reveals the way in which all of these forces were responsible for that regime change. So Khan has been in jail since August of last year. And we're not talking about ordinary jail, isolated and just wretched conditions there. But he's been steadfast. In the past, we've had civilian prime ministers removed from power, but usually they make a safe exit to Dubai or Saudi Arabia or London, and the military is fine with that. Khan refused that throughout this period. And he says, no, I'm not leaving, I'm not going anywhere. And I think that that's part of the inspiration to the many that, regardless of whether they're in the political party or not, but seeing the way this guy has been steadfast throughout this ordeal. And I think that explains to a large extent why the people defying the way that the military establishment interfered in these elections, interfered is putting it euphemistically, but rigged, all of these things to facilitate their guy in the Nawaz Sharif group in the Pakistan Muslim League. This is one of the main two political parties, trying to facilitate his coming to power. I mean, they would not even have won half of their parliamentary seats without the rigging of the military. And so now we're in a situation in which the Chief of Army Staff, General Asim Munir, and the military high command, are receiving harsh criticisms, even from the U.S. State Department, from members of Congress, and now all of a sudden the New York Times, and everyone remembers the situation in Pakistan. But I think that that's also part of the frustration by the State Department, all of these various organs in the United States, of continuously lying about what's going on. And even in these elections, the Khan supporters get the most seats. It really is miraculous. I mean, it's not because I've always said that we consider Khan some revolutionary, but I'm coming to realize that in the Pakistani context, revolutionary is even someone who's mildly pro-democracy and pro-social justice. So that's the situation we have now.
No, I think that's a great overview, and I appreciate that. And it makes me wonder. I mean, obviously now you have Mr. Sharif, who you just mentioned, and the Pakistan People's Party trying to form a government And it seems like they're hoping they can kind of turn the page on this. Like, even though he won the most seats, we'll combine, we'll form the new government, and we'll just kind of move past it. I mean, how likely is that? I mean, it seems like, one, just such an odd couple marriage politically in and of itself, but it really feels like, sort of wishful thinking that this is it. But it's kind of how it's being reported in the Western media, like, oh, they're going to form this government, it's all over, everything you saw, just forget about that.
Well, I think there's a lot of amnesia within the media and others, because that's exactly what they did when they ousted Khan. Basically, all of the political parties had to get together. They also, blackmailed and paid off many of the members of Khan's party itself to kind of switch horses during that period. And of course, not to mention the military establishment and the United States. So at that time, Khan was confronting all of these very powerful forces, and they thought that it would solve the Khan problem, but it did not. So as I said, at that time, massive outpouring of support followed his removal, which is unprecedented in the removal of any civilian prime minister in the country. And all of these parties thought that getting together will finally solve this problem. And the same thing they're trying to do now. Again, since Khan's party won the most seats in parliament, these other political parties have to combine all of their seats to get the coalition, including the two major political parties that in the past have hated each other, but they realized that the Khan political party, a kind of newbie in the political scene in Pakistan, is really representing a threat because of the popular appeal. I mean, that's not questioned. When we would speak about this before, people would be debating, is he really that popular? And in what sections of society? At this stage, no one can deny that clearly he's by far and away the most popular politician in the country. And so even right now, you have the same things. All of these political parties are coming together. But by now, Eugene and Rania, it's like so much of a farce and a joke that all Pakistanis can see through it. So at the end of the day, I always say that this has been kind of a resounding victory for, of course, Khan, and of course the people of Pakistan, regardless of whether they're supporters of PTI, this political party, or not. But the fact that they were able to defy the most powerful institution in the country, the military establishment, and still vote that way is certainly a victory for them. And so that's why I want to say that this coalition, once again, that's coming together, it's going to be very unstable. We already see the signs, and one can predict this, of these parties now criticizing each other, and who will have the ministries in government and so on. So the squabbles have already begun, which always happens. The military establishment and these politicians, people consider them antagonists of each other. I've always seen them as partners in crime, sometimes have squabbles between them. It's like an intra-elite battle. So this is the situation we have. Like I said, there's a lot of excitement and enthusiasm because of what's happened, and because it demonstrably shows which party is the most popular in the country. So I do predict that this is going to be a very unstable government, and the fact that they demonstrated their resistance in these elections, or what we often call the generals' selections, because the chief of army staff always plays kingmaker in these situations. The fact that they were able to get such a resounding victory it does not bode well for the other political parties now trying to form government.
Well, I guess then the one thing I would want to ask after that is, what happens next moving forward?
I guess it's much easier to speak about what's happened before and that context, because
make your predictions and we will come back to you and we will play them for you in a year and see if you were right. No, I'm just joking. But yeah, what does happen next?
Let me get my crystal ball. But it's funny, because I think it's now a couple of times that I've been on this show. It's kind of like we're still discussing the same thing, and I'm very averse to making predictions in this situation, because again, the way they had gone after and targeted Khan specifically, and the forms of kind of manipulation of the political process in Pakistan. No one expected this. So, contrary to our expectations, this is still a very powerful tendency and movement within Pakistan. So, as I'm saying, that despite the fact that now they're trying to put together this government, and the chief of army staff right now is getting criticisms from the outside, from Washington itself, and he's kind of just trying to save his own skin and back in this situation. And he's just trying to kind of repay the favor that both the other political parties, but especially the Pakistan Muslim League-Nawaz, the House of Sharif, that's the dynastic political party, and he's trying to facilitate them, get the prime ministership, also become chief minister in the largest and most politically powerful province, Punjab. So it seems very clear what he's trying to do, but it's so transparently fraudulent in the eyes of the population. That's why I'm predicting that this will be an incredibly unstable a new coalition government, and that as I often say, the Khan virus has certainly not disappeared. In fact, it's come back with a vengeance.
Mm-hmm. Well, a lot to follow here, and to continue to follow, to keep seeing. I think there's going to be a lot of fallout, so we're going to have to keep bringing you back to keep following this. Really appreciate you as always, Professor Junaid Ahmad. Thank you so much for some of your time here on the Freedom Side.
Thanks so much. Always a pleasure.